Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Capitalize Your Best Real Estate Marketing Podcast. My name is Gordon Duncan. I'm the owner of Capitalize Marketing and Consulting, and this is episode 10. And if you're watching, you can see we have a guest. What better way to celebrate 10 episodes than to have my friend Pam Super Kuper on here? But I'm not going to introduce her yet. I've got to start by saying, first of all, you guys are amazing. 9 episodes. I'm getting likes, shares, and subscriptions. The podcast is growing and, more importantly, making an impact. So I appreciate that. I definitely want to say thank you every single time you guys tune in. Starting another podcast was like, do I want to make another baby? And so far, it's going all right. So thank you so much. But enough of me. Pam Super Kuper, thank you so much for being with us. I'm glad you're here.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me, Gordon.
So I'm going to tell you guys right now, I asked Pam 15 minutes ago. It's how good of a planner I am for the podcast. But we've been texting today. It's snowing here in Virginia. And I just thought, well, it's time to record my podcast. And I thought, I'm going to do this to Pam. So thank you. That's last minute. Cannot tell at all that you just all of a sudden got ready. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. I think both of our appointments had to be reshuffled and around because of the snow. So it was good to be able to meet with you today.
I know. I'm excited. Listen, the snow's been nice. It's been wonderful to look at. I've been in the basement too long. I need to get out and move my legs tomorrow, so I can't wait. So Pam, I'm gonna do a slight introduction, but you can do the best introduction. So I've known you on and off for several years. We've been friends here for a good 5 or 6 months. But you've been in the industry. You've been a realtor for 12 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
You want to give us sort of a brief bio of just you being anything about you want to share, but then also just your career.
I started out helping a friend of mine who was a realtor do marketing for her business. And the more I started working with her and learning about real estate, I fell in love with it and decided that I wanted to get my license. Mentored under her for a short while and then went off on my own and worked with a number of different wonderful realtors over the years, and then finally parked my license at Century 21 New Millennium, where I am now.
Awesome. Now, Pam, 12 years. I've been marketing for 20, but I've really only been marketing in the real estate industry probably for about 3 years. And I see wonderful, excited agents who are like, well, I want to get into it because I can make my own schedule and make a lot of money. And there is the capacity for all that. But how the heck did you make it 12 years? I mean, that takes you all the way back to like post 08 recession to where we are now. How'd you make it 12 years?
Well, you said a lot in just a few sentences there. I will say to you, I started in a down market, which in my mind as I look back on it, was a really good thing. If you can learn to work in a down market, you can work in any market and really enjoy when it's an up market. That said, there's most realtors make it 5 years. 80%, over 80% of realtors will leave this business within 5 years.
Wow.
And I remember walking into my mentor's office, and I still have a mentor after all these years. Walked into her office and I said, "Hey, Robin, when's this going to start getting a little easier?" And she looked at me and she goes, "You're done." I said, "Excuse me?" She goes, "You're done. Go pack your stuff up and go find another job. Go find a nice little 9-to-5 job." And I said, What are you talking about?" She said, "It never gets easier, never. But you get tougher, you get stronger, and you're more capable." And I thought, that's not really the answer I wanted. And I went home and I cried that night. I legitimately cried. This is not the answer I wanted. And I came back the next day and I said, I got the point. I see what you're saying. And when I made that shift in my thinking that this real estate business, it's always difficult, it's always challenging, it's constantly changing. And if I accept that, and I work towards that understanding and continue to further my education as a realtor and my skills, that I'll be able to traverse this business successfully, and I have.
Yeah, you have. I mean, you got a wonderful reputation in the area. I know you've sold
Thank you.
homes. And what you're saying would sound like good advice to a younger person in the industry. You know, I have a friend named, I think I've shared this story with you possibly, but a friend named Carla, and she's a runner. And one day I said, man, it's just too cold outside. I didn't go running. And she said, well, you just need to put your big boy pants on and go running next time. And I was like, so it sounds like that was the day you got the big boy pants conversation where it's like this, it
Yep.
just doesn't get easier.
Nope.
So we both have children, you have grandchildren. Literally the type of advice we would give in a tough love moment to a child of ours. Um, for younger agents, um, do you feel like they're getting that kind of advice?
Well, it depends on where they go to get the mentoring support, um, and assistance with their business. There are a lot of types of brokerages out there. There's little brokerages. There's very large ones like Century 21. Um, there are mid-sized ones, and within each one of those brokerages, you have brokers that some are great handholders when you first get started, and others will tell you to go get a mentor right off the bat and to help yourself, which is my recommendation. Even if you work for a small or a large brokerage, get a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the lore for that's come around the last 5+ years is this idea of 100% commission. You
Mm-hmm.
pay a administration fee for each transaction, and then we'll give you 100% commission. Well, what do you think goes with that? You
Right.
think anyone's going to hold your hand or help you or
That's a
encourage
good
you or
point.
support you?
Point.
That'd be a no. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a good point.
to a degree, but not to the extent that a new realtor needs. Think of it this way: if we consider that one of the biggest investments that people will make in the course of their life is buying a home,
Mm-hmm.
and then you hire your nephew who just got his real estate license, but he's still working part-time doing something else, and really all he's done is taken the classes, which are essentially 6 weeks.
Right.
um yeah, and he doesn't have anybody helping him or supporting him. The reality is that you're taking some big chances there
Yeah.
because he really doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, with the agents I work with of any experience, I mean, I tell them you have to make yourself. You know, like people have to look at you and go, "I really would like for you to handle a $500,000 transaction for me,
Right.
or more, or in this area, a $750,000." So, are you presenting yourself as the kind of person who handles $500,000 transactions?
Yeah.
When I went in, my mentor, when I went into ministry, he told me at that point he said, "If you can do any other thing in the world, go do it." He goes, "Because this will be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life." And so it may not necessarily be that case for real estate, but like, the question I would ask folks is, have you ever done something where you have to work insanely hard with no guarantee of a pay?
Right. Boy, what a great point you just made. The reality is that realtors will take on a client and they will spend 4 to 6 weeks just on the transaction itself. That doesn't include any time. Say you're working with a buyer, that doesn't include the time that you're going to go looking for the houses,
Right?
finding the right house, sometimes submitting multiple offers until you finally get the right house,
Mhm.
which means they don't get a paycheck
Yeah.
until that transaction closes. And if it doesn't close, all that time and effort and work that they put into, there's no money.
So, one agent recently told me 50 hours, and in the contract portion, her buyer lost her job, and it couldn't be rescued. And
Yeah.
so towards that end, and these are conversations that you and I have had a little bit, Pam. I'd love for you to speak about it from your perspective. What you do is hard. You're right. You run the risk of spending 50 hours a week of your life plus of your life and not getting
Correct.
paid for it.
Correct.
But online, there's a couple of memes rolling around that in the realtor circle is very popular. not complaining necessarily about how hard you work, but listing all the things you work. And you and I have talked about it could be a little bit of a bad look. Um, do you mind speaking a little
Sure.
bit about how uh, an agent or a realtor needs to present themselves online in light of the fact of how hard they work? What would be your recommendation for things like that?
Well, there's a fine line there because I think that realtors need to do a better job of helping their clients understand what they do for them and how effective they can be when they do their job well. On the other hand, there's this line that you could cross over that becomes whining or complaining about how hard you work. And the reality is that uh, it is hard work. Real estate is one thing. It's not about showing homes. It's not about um, all the things that we think we're going to get to do when we first get into real estate. I love houses. I love people. I want to show homes and help people buy homes.
Right.
It's problem solving all day long. That's what you do. That's my job. My job is solving problems. And every day in every transaction, there are numerous problems that need to be resolved. And my husband said, Pam, if you look at this like it's a puzzle, and there is a solution to it, you begin to enjoy it. And
Nice.
and I thought he was right. If I shifted my perspective and I started to look at it like it was this how can I solve this problem? What's the solution? I really enjoy it. I really love what I do. That's not to say it's not difficult. It is. It's still difficult. It's still a lot of work, but it's very rewarding because when it's done well and it's successful, there is a real joy in handing somebody the keys to their new home, especially somebody that's worked really hard to get in the position of being able to get their first home. That's an exciting thing. Or when you help a seller to be able to overcome some obstacles in selling their house and help them move on to the next chapter in their lives, it's really rewarding. I love it. It never is boring. So
I
yeah,
think
to
I,
answer your question,
yeah.
I think there's a fine line. I think we need to be able to let people know what we're doing for them, how important it is that we do what we do, but not complain about it.
Yeah, it's a great point, I mean, I hate the word balance, so it's a fine line. I think when you have the opportunity to share what you do, because most people have no idea, what you do.
Right.
Um, when you share what you do, but you share it along the way in terms of client celebrations, the person who follows you online gets the opportunity to see, oh, I didn't know they did that. But
Yeah.
when it's cast in terms of a win for the client,
Yes.
then you're not bragging. You're educating the people who are watching you, and the client's excited to see it as well. So, listen,
Right.
passing a septic inspection day to day, no one's excited about that, but you know how much is at stake
Yeah.
if that's going on. But when you're like, when the post is, you can't imagine the smile on my client's face when we pass the septic inspection. I watch
Yeah.
that and I go, oh, I didn't know you have to pass septic inspections. Good job for Pam. She helped someone put a
Yeah.
smile on their face.
Let me just say there are almost always is a problem with septic inspections. Always a problem.
We get ready to sell our house and we're like, we got a problem with I forget the meter, the
Yeah.
basement. I forget. We were getting poisoned. We were afraid. One of those deals. You're like, oh, I didn't even know that was in the basement. So, yeah. But anyway, when it passed inspection, we were incredibly excited. So Pam,
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, just to add to that, here's what we're looking at as we move into the next era of real estate. So you've got most folks who are looking at Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, a lot of these online sites, and they're finding houses almost as quickly as they're put on the multiple listing system.
Mhm.
And so they're calling their realtor and saying, hey, I want to go check this house out. Well, now people are beginning to say, well, do I really need a realtor to do that? I mean, if all the information's already out there, why do I need a realtor? And again, that goes back to helping the realtors helping their clients understand why they're so essential in the process of helping them buy a house or sell a house. because it is sticky and complicated, and there are always problems that arise. And part of my job is, when I present a problem to a client, it's already to have done my research before I pick up that phone and call them to say, hey, we've got a problem, but here's A and B
Nice. Yep.
solution. So let's take a look at this and see which one you want to go with. And if an owner of who's trying to sell his house by himself comes upon a problem like that, he doesn't have the resources, he doesn't know where to go, he's not sure what to do, he doesn't know what steps to take next. And when you're looking at the contracts that are used today in particularly Northern Virginia area, on down through the Richmond areas, there are multiple pages with numerous contingencies and timelines. You miss one of those deadlines, you're in trouble.
With that, Zillow is the WebMD of real estate. WebMD, you show up at the doctor and you're like, I have tendonitis in my left elbow, but I think a shot will do. Can you help me out with it? And then Zillow is the same thing, where you become sort of junior expert in real estate. And I understand why there's a bane to a certain extent in the industry for it. You make the great point that if you show yourself as an educational resource for potential clients, potential customers,
Yeah.
then you becomes that personal opportunity or a personal alternative to a Zillow. So, but that got me to the next point. You were talking about providing solutions. You recently became a certified negotiation expert. So is that for hostages? Is that for used car lots? I don't know what that is. Tell me what a certified negotiation.
Specifically for real estate negotiations.
Dang it. I had
There
another,
are
but
there
that's
are
okay. You can help me out with something else later. But what's a certified negotiation expert?
Well, it's a course that I took, and it's something that really helps you look at the psychology of selling and understanding people and being able to effectively work through the challenges that you face with a transaction. Sometimes you have someone who's very adversarial on the other end, whether it be the realtor. I hate to say that, but sometimes it is. Or you have a seller or a buyer on the other side that's very black and white in their thinking, and they're determined that it's going to be a certain way. It's helping to move the process and the transaction along so that people can both get what they want and need and make it to the closing table. And it's such an important skill to learn, and it's not something you learn overnight, and it's not something you even learn in a year. It takes years of practice with transactions, and really, again, studying people, understanding them, and trying to find an effective solution for both sides.
Are you it's of course it's a arrow in your quiver when you come to work with a client. How often do you willingly target or are willing to take on what you know is going to be a difficult sell? I got this thing. It needs to be sold. Ain't nobody ever sold it, Pam. I mean, like, I mean, do you feel comfortable doing that? Or, I mean, I know
Always,
with
always.
you do.
Yeah,
Well,
always.
why would you do that? Why would you take that on?
I think it just goes back to what my husband Chris said. If you look at it like there's a solution to this puzzle, it becomes a new challenge. It's exciting and enjoyable.
Mhm.
And particularly this year, I had some very difficult transactions that were just that I thoroughly enjoyed working through. It was wonderful to help the people get on the other side of it, both sides. There were people that had dealt with losses in their life and in their personal life and financially, and to be able to help them to find solutions to those problems, and feel like they at the end there was light at the end of the tunnel for them. There is nothing like that feeling, and that's what keeps me doing this year after year.
I'm reading a book right now with a terrible cover, but a great book. It's called the No BS Marketing to the Affluent, written by Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy was a old school Amway guy, and but he goes through segments of the population that are untargeted in terms of representation. And one of those is post 50 divorced. Now
Oh, right.
that's niched,
Yeah. Yep.
but post 50 divorced have got homes that people have been in for 22 years. Negotiation would have to be a part of that, I imagine,
Yeah.
without sharing anything that you can't share. I mean, have you dealt with divorced home
Yes,
sales?
I have.
And
Yes, I
what
have.
tell me something about what
It's
that's like.
very sticky. It's very difficult. It's high emotion, um, a lot of hurt feelings, and the objective is to help both people get through it, um, getting what they need, so they can move on with their lives.
Mm,
And yeah, that's probably the toughest. To be honest, that's tougher than dealing with a house with 1,000 problems. I can solve that all day
sure,
long.
sure, sure. We
Helping
had
people through a
contacts for that, sure.
divorce sale, that's a tough one, but it's doable. And it's respecting people and understanding that they're just trying to get through this, the best they can, and get on the other side of it
Mm.
and move on.
So, back in the day, I did peacemakers training. It's a counseling
Okay.
approach, and but part of one of the emphases on that was removing personal language, like as in, you make me feel like crap when you say it. Instead of like that, it's the when I hear things like that, I have a tendency to feel this way, which is completely different language than the you in that. In negotiation, could you share the training you when you one or two maybe points that they gave you kind of helped you like what are one or two of the guidelines they gave you as you became certified negotiating expert?
Well, I will say to you that generally speaking, in a situation where people are getting divorced, often someone will sign a quit claim deed and remove themselves from the deed, and you'll just be dealing with one person, and then you have to make sure that both people are paid at the closing table. But if there are still two people in the process, I want to keep them completely separate from one another,
Mm,
and I want to make sure that I'm hearing both of them, listening to what they want, and making sure that I'm being um, sympathetic
mhm,
to what they're feeling and what they're going through, and then being as honest as I possibly can with them. Because a lot of times I have to say, I know this is difficult. I know this hurts. But this is what has to be done if you want to get on the other side of it. And I'm going to hold your hand through it. But
mm.
this has to happen. And I would say almost all the time, people will go, okay, all right. And they'll get through it.
Well, and I appreciate that. I mean, I know that 2020 and 2021 divorce rates rose, and that may be related to pandemic or an election cycle. Even though things like interest rates and the economy seems to have some hope this year, any election cycle year usually causes divorce, which is amazing. There's parallel between those two. So
Interesting,
I-
right?
I'm excited that you're available, but hopefully you won't be needed too much in that area. Yeah, are you? What optimism do you have this year for the industry, and where does it come from?
Oh, I think as you said, I think we're definitely seeing the interest rates they're going to probably, according to the National Association of Realtors chief economist, he thinks that we're going to balance out somewhere between 5 and 6% in interest rates,
Mhm.
level off there, which I think is a very healthy interest rate, historically.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I would say in our area, because we're very strategically located, Fredericksburg is between Richmond and Washington, D.C. That corridor right there we have not seen a drastic drop in housing prices. Now, we're
Mhm,
not seeing the over the market price that we were seeing during the pandemic,
mhm,
but we haven't seen a drastic change in housing prices. That's interesting.
mhm,
It makes for an interesting market that still puts us in a seller's market. But we are seeing that buyers are being able to negotiate a little more when it comes to repairs that they're asking for. maybe asking for a little more help with closing costs that they weren't getting before. And the other thing I always say too is that lenders don't just, when the interest rate changes and the market changes, they just go, well, I guess there's nothing we can do. We can't loan out any money. We just have to, shut our doors. They
Right.
become very creative and come up with all sorts of interesting loan programs and grant programs. And we're seeing those come out right now, particularly for first-time home buyers. Really, really great programs for folks.
Well, I think the things you just mentioned, since you earned your stripes in a downturned economy and have now been through three, probably if we count 12 years, you've experienced being an agent in an upturn and have something more to say than the interest rates coming down. Like you just listed 5 or 6 things, just then. And so, for your I mean, I know you want everybody to succeed. For the younger agents, what would you have them say other than, "Hey, the interest rate's down, come hop into the water, water's fine." Like, what should agents, realtors be talking about in addition to the drop of the interest rate?
What a great question. Think of it this way. I always say, and you heard me say this 100 times, dirt has value.
Right. Yeah.
Land always has value. And the reality is that if you buy a house now at 6%,
Mhm.
and you hold on to that house for the next 5 years, what we see uh, historically is that interest rates, even if, or housing prices rather, will tend to increase about 3 to 7%, depending on the market. Generally, I would say we're looking at 4% as a fair, reasonable amount of increase in housing prices. So you've got a couple of things. You've got, if you buy a house, first of all, you're not paying rent somebody else's mortgage. You're not paying rent that you can't write off any of the interest on. If you buy a house, we can still to this date write off our interest payment on our taxes, and a lot of our county and state taxes can be written off on our federal taxes. So you've got that benefit that you don't have if you're a rentor. You have an asset that continues to improve and increase in value. And if the rental market changes, guess what? Your mortgage doesn't.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
it's if you've got a 30-year fixed rate, your mortgage rate is the same as it was, uh,
Yeah.
regardless of the economy.
Mhm.
It stays the same. So, if prices go up in gas and prices go up in food, your mortgage payment is still the same price it was when you bought your house 3 years later.
I love that. When we were in North Carolina, we built a house, countrywide, which I don't even think still exists anymore. You know the stories about
Right,
that. My
right.
mortgage was bought and sold so many times, I had no idea who I owed money to. But when we left, we were upside down. We were still post '08,
Yeah.
and then the announcement of a shopping center 3 miles from my home caused my home to get above water. That's all it took was that
Interesting.
that all of a sudden the whole world, everybody was so happy, like, we just knew that it was coming in. It was a Cabela's, I mean, that kind of thing just brought everybody in. So in your, it's you as an agent, what do you tell someone who's not thinking about buying? They're like, "I'm just gonna stay here."
Yeah.
Knowing all the things that come into this area. Fredericksburg's got something being built every single day. We're
Yes, it
expanding. We got
does.
water parks. We got water
Yes,
parks coming.
that's right.
How would you shape that to a renter who's like, I don't want to do it. How do you shape all that's going around in the area as an appeal to someone that maybe now's the time to buy a house?
Well, yeah, first of all, I'm a believer that uh, that there's a right time to buy for each person
Hmm.
individually. If you're not sure if you're going to stay in the area for the next 3 to 5 years, rent.
Hmm. Hmm.
Probably it's probably makes the most amount of sense for you because you're probably going to move on to another area. If, however, you think you want to stay put for a while, um, absolutely,
Hmm.
buy a house or a townhouse. Um, when we say house, we're talking
Sure,
about,
sure, sure. Own something.
you're
Yeah.
right, your own dwelling. Absolutely invest in yourself, because really that's what you're doing. You're investing in yourself. It is, I mean, our homes are our sanctuaries, but they are a fantastic investment, and it's a long-term investment, generally speaking. And unless, of course, you bought just before the pandemic and then right and then sold right at the end of the pandemic and instantly made $100,000, which some of my clients did.
Sure,
Yes, they
sure.
did. They did very well. I mean, you don't know what's going to come down the line. I mean, did we ever in our lifetime, Gordon, ever think that we were going to live through a pandemic?
No, no. I couldn't have predicted the ramifications of 2021 on my life, and it had nothing to do with health. Like,
Right.
I'm just saying, could never have guessed for the ramifications of that.
Y-
And again, this seems sort of culturally observant. It just seems like pace of life and change is so much faster since 2020.
It
And
absolutely has. Yeah. Well, let me give you an example that I just thought of that I thought was kind of interesting. I had some friends years ago who bought this piece of land in Stafford, and they were going to build their dream house on it. And this was, I think they bought it in northern Stafford area, right? So up near more like the 610 area. Okay. So they buy this piece of land, and they use it for a couple years as for great family gathering places, and they've they're waiting for the right time to build. And all of a sudden along comes the VRE that
oh, wow.
says, hey, you know what? We really would like to buy your land from you because we'd like to put the train right through this area. And they offered them a very handsome sum of money
Wow. Good
for
for
that
them.
land, at which point they went, yes, please, and thank you,
Yeah, yeah,
and
sure.
sold
How
their
quick.
land, and then went and bought another house someplace else and paid cash for it. You know,
Yeah,
you never in a million years did they think
yeah.
that they were going to be able to, that they just bought this little piece of land they bought for like, $10,000, and
Good.
it
Good
ended
for
up
them.
making hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. But again, like I like to say, dirt has value. So,
Right. That's right.
invest in real estate, invest in yourself, because that's what real estate is. It's an opportunity for you to um, have some stability in your life, but also it's making money for you.
Well, Pam, I love it. I'm gonna begin to land the plane here a little bit. We've never had an episode over 12 minutes. I'm excited you're here. And so I'm gonna I don't want to bore you're not boring him. I don't want to kill anybody. I got a couple things for you before we step away. First of all, thank you, our very first guest.
Oh,
So that means that
thanks for
that
inviting me. This was great.
yeah.
And can I just put a little plug in for having the most amazing business coach out there too, Gordon
Oh,
Duncan.
thank you. So full disclosure. So Pam and I do work together in the Capitalize Your Best program. And so in addition to that, we're friends, but thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm
Yeah,
having
no, truly. And just for new realtors, get a mentor, get a coach. You will never go wrong in investing in getting a great coach.
yeah, you either have to figure it out on your own or pay someone to help you.
Yeah.
And me, anybody else, when you pay someone, you buy time. You
Yeah.
buy time. And so, well, with that, what do you have going on this year? Tell us what's going on. Anything big going on? Anything you want to share?
uh I'm just plugging along doing this the same thing I do. I'm finding that last year, as I said, I got to work with some very challenging real estate transactions that
Mhm.
that helped women in particular, which was such a blessing to me
Nice.
to be able to help single women. I think I'd like to see more and more women buy real estate. I'd like to see more women invest in themselves in real estate. I think it's a tremendous asset, and I think that that's something that I would love to help someone do. So if someone is interested in doing that, um, love to
Nice.
speak with them.
Nice. What? So you have made it Facebook public. So I'm going to ask. You do have your own podcast in the work, do you not?
I do. I do.
Tell us about it real quick.
Well, it stemmed again from these transactions that I had this year, and recognizing that that women are just remarkable creatures, and I have seen some women who are very successful overcome some very seemingly insurmountable odds. And as I listened to their stories, I thought, I want other people to hear these stories. I want other people to be inspired like I am by these amazing women. So I started a podcast called Powerful, just based on women telling their stories and how they overcame these difficult odds, and succeeded just against some things that when I hear them tell their stories, I go, I don't know that I could have done that.
Right.
I'm not sure, but they in each one of their stories, they share these nuggets of truth and inspiration and make you realize, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yep. Wonderful. Well, I can't wait for it to debut. I know
Thank you.
you're putting some episodes together, and we'll let
I
everybody know
am.
when it comes out. So excited. So Pam, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you for
appreciate you making
inviting me.
time. Tell us where to find you on social media.
You can find me at Pam Cooper Realtor on Facebook. Um, uh, Gordon, I just, I just created a new website, superpamcooper.com.
Excellent. Excellent.
That
Now,
should be up in the next couple of weeks,
for
and it'll
our
have
friends,
information. Yeah.
for our friends who are listening, Pam, aside from your attribute of being super, why are you Pam Super Cooper? Why is this?
All right. Well, so I loved what you put on the name. So my last name is spelled Kuper, like Super
Gotcha.
Cooper.
I
So
love.
so years ago I had someone say, hey, you ought to make that your email. And I thought, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. But they said, it'll help people remember how to spell your name. And I did, and it stuck. And I went, well, all right. So it's Cooper as in super.
Well, I love it. I do. I love it when someone can self gloss and everyone loves it. Like
Yes.
if I walked around calling myself Super Gordon Duncan, people are like, "Stop it with yourself." But no, you walked into the room at that one seminar I was at, and Sherry, who probably needs to be on the show as well,
Yes, she does.
you just go, "It's Pam Super Cooper," and I was like, "That is fantastic." So, Pam, you're the best. Thank you so much. Also,
Thanks,
thank you
Gordon.
for getting ready on last moment's notice. And guys,
Thank you.
everyone, thank you for tuning in. Like, share, find Pam Super Cooper on all the socials, and when her podcast comes out, I will let you know. And we will have in the show notes registration link for our next setting yourself up for success seminar. This
I'm
was
looking forward to that.
virtual. Thank you. The last one went really well. And so please find that registration link in the show notes, and we will be back next week. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Gordon.
Bye bye.